You're in Braves country.
Everybody, welcome into Braves country today. I'm Mac Magee. How does it feel, Braves fans? 26 long years and you are world champions once again. Cannot overstate how rare it is to win these World Series and how exciting it is for the fan bases. We all get that the players are excited, but I think sometimes what gets lost in the mix are the fans who grind with these teams every day. You're all out there. You've all been pulling for this franchise. You've been doing it for years. Some of y'all for decades. Some of y'all have rarely missed a game. Some of y'all don't get a chance to watch them as much as you'd like, but you keep up with them. You're either reading about them on social media, you're checking the scores, maybe listening to the radio play. Maybe you found us through the YouTube broadcast that we did. You know, we started doing that in September of this year. We were originally supposed to do our first broadcast, and a company reached out to me and wanted me to help do some baseball games. And I was a little skeptical on what that meant. I hadn't done play-by-play in years. We've been doing the sports talk show for a long time, but I hadn't done play-by-play. I hadn't done baseball play-by-play in, it had been right around the last time the Braves won the World Series. I mean, to be honest with you, I think the last time I did play-by-play via radio way back in college, I think that was 93, maybe 94. I don't believe 95. I think by 95, I was no longer doing it. But it was right in that same time range. And I used to do play-by-play for the local college just north of Nashville, Tennessee. And there were times where I was put into the booth by myself because they didn't have others to do. So I hadn't done play-by-play by myself in quite some time. I'd helped fill in throughout the years. I lived in several different cities, and there were times where I had filled in for a game here and there. People had asked for me to help, and I always enjoyed it, but I think I forgot how much I enjoyed it until this year. And started doing the games again. We were supposed to do the Colorado game. The Colorado game got rained out in Atlanta. And I wanted to go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and did not want to wait for them to come all the way back to their homestand because they were leaving Atlanta on that Colorado game, if y'all remember that, and heading over to the West Coast for quite the road trip. And they were going to play San Francisco the next night. And I didn't think it out when I agreed to contacted the guys and said, you know what, the game got rained out today. It was supposed to be an afternoon tilt. I'll go ahead and do the Friday night game. And after I committed to it, I then realized, man, that game is going to end around 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I've got to turn around and do a radio show the next morning, the early morning, Saturday morning kickoff show. Well, I didn't back out of it. I went ahead and did it. And to my surprise, I had an absolute blast. The biggest thing I remember about that was that the Braves played the Giants that night. We lost, but it was a heart-pounding loss. I mean, that game went to extra innings. So to add to it, not only had to be up early the next morning, you went to extra innings. That was the game. If you remember this, we go out there to San Francisco, and Ian Anderson pitched that night. He pitched decent, 5 innings. I think he got into the 6th, and he gave up like 3 or 4 earned runs, and he went up against Logan Webb. And remember, Logan Webb was just unhittable. The Braves got off the mat in the top of the 9th inning, and they scored 3 runs to go ahead and take a 1-run lead going into the bottom of the 9th. And Will Smith ended up blowing the save. This is when everybody wanted Will Smith's head, right? Wow, how times have changed. But Will Smith blew the lead. They go to extra innings, and we end up losing in extra innings. But I was hooked again. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed doing play-by-play, and then doing it for the Braves was the icing on top of the cake. Team I've followed since I was a young boy. This is my 40th year of being a Braves fan. I had to go back and count it up, but I was a young child when I became a Braves fan in '82. So this is the 40th season I've been a Braves fan. And they've been my one team that I've gone through thick and thin. The team that I picked out from my youth. You know, I've got my affiliation with my college team because my dad graduated from there. And there were other teams that I picked out. But this is the one that I've, for 40 seasons, no matter what, I have been an Atlanta Braves fan and have followed them through some really lean years and some really fun years. All in all, I can't complain. I think it's been a heck of a ride. It's been a fun ride to be a Braves fan. We've had probably a total of what I would consider bad years, about 10 in my lifetime. So you'll take those odds any day of the week, right? 30 fun seasons to about probably 10 not fun seasons. But I watched them every game. It didn't matter to me. It'll never change because they're the one team that I will take from my boyhood all the way till the end, because you get sucked in to not just the sport, but you get sucked into the people. And you follow these guys, you follow their careers. You follow the Dale Murphys into the Chipper Jones, into the Freddie Freemans, and all the guys in between. But I did that game that night, and I decided to go ahead and do another Braves-Giants game, and I ended up doing the Braves-Giants game of that Sunday where Max Fried pitched, Will Smith slammed the door. It was a hell of a game. And the Braves were just starting to catch momentum. Now, we were worried about it when we got out there on that West Coast, but they were starting to catch momentum because we knew playing the Giants was tough. We lost that Giants series. We lost the first 2 games of the series, and Max Fried won the 3rd one. But heck, we had Fried, Morton, and Ian Anderson all pitching that series. And what I remember about that is thinking to myself, we hung in there with what is considered the best team in baseball. We went toe-to-toe, and I thought we did a pretty darn good job considering we went on the road, and we won one of those games, but we should have won Friday night's game, and we played an excellent game on Saturday. After that, I continued to carry the team, and I did almost every game till the end of the season. They went to Arizona next, and I did all 3 of those games. And then after the Arizona series, they went to the Padres, and I did 2 of 3 of those. And then they came home, and that was the Phillies series. That was the Mets. And I did all the games all the way till the Braves clinched the division when they knocked out the Phillies. We didn't end up doing the Mets series on YouTube. I did do one of them for that same company. But I had a long talk with my wife, and I said, look, something I want to do. I want to follow this team. We're going to give it the old college try. And I think when she signed up and agreed to it, she probably figured, Hell, the Braves aren't any good. They'll be out of it in the first round. Sure, go ahead. And now here we are. So I can't thank her enough for the support of allowing me to do this around the clock. There's obviously other things going on in our life, but to put a good, honest 3 to 4 hours a night into this. And then, of course, there's a lot of preparation that people don't realize that goes on before the game that you have to be ready for. And so every waking hour, any split second that I had, I was prepping for the next Braves game I was going to do. What a hell of a ride. And when we started, I never thought in a million years this is where it was heading. I figured I was going to have fun with it. I cannot tell you how much it meant to us that many people watched. It dwarfed any expectations that I even remotely had of how many people would tune into the game. So can't tell you how much that means to us. And that's why we will do it again next year. As long as the support is there and people are wanting to hear Braves baseball and they want to hear it from a fan's perspective, but I bring it old school radio style play. It's the only way I know how to do a game. That's how I was brought into doing baseball games. That's how I grew up listening to them. And so that's how I try to bring the Braves to you. We are planning on doing some other games, other teams, but I will continue to bring the Braves to you. And so 2022, you can expect Braves games at least twice a week. We want to get a really consistent schedule. Gonna have to build it around my day job, but we're gonna bring at least twice a week to you. And I think there's a very good chance Friday night's gonna be one of those nights, and then we'll kind of go from there. But we want to be as consistent as possible. But I can't do 162 games. Had an absolute blast, and then when we get to the playoffs, we'll do it again. If we're in the playoffs, I'll carry every single Braves game for you. Well, putting all that aside, I wanted to thank everybody, everyone that listened, everyone that supported us, some people that sent some very nice messages to me. Can't tell you how much I appreciate that. The people in the thread that supported us and thanked us for doing the games. It just means a lot. And then, of course, the unsung hero was my wife who allowed me to do this. She was more than supportive, and she actually listened to the games in the other room. She would be doing her own thing, but I always knew she was listening too. But the whole thing was really, it was like a dream come true. And though I wasn't on technically Braves radio, I knew Braves fans were listening. And that was more than enough for me. And we'll continue to do it. It might be something that becomes a stalwart from years to come, but this game has given me so much pleasure. I hope that we can bring that same kind of pleasure to everybody's household and everybody's phone or device, however you listen to it. If I can make just a few more folks out there, not just a big Braves fan, but an appreciation for baseball, it's 1,000% worth it. And to me, it's what life is about. It's coming together as fans and celebrating this great game. So you move on from that, and we celebrate this championship. You go all the way back to when the run began, and I think it gets overlooked a little bit, but I think the run actually began in Los Angeles, California on October 6th. That was the National League wild card game, the Cardinals and Dodgers. I did that game as well. What a phenomenal game that was. We had a huge turnout for that, and that was a lot of fun because that was the first time I did a game on the YouTube feed that wasn't the Braves. But I wanted to do one, and we actually did the one before that. I did that with somebody. A good friend of mine helped out with the Red Sox Yankees, and that was a lot of fun. But I did the St. Louis Los Angeles game solo, and I do a lot of research because these aren't the two teams I watch day in and day out. So I felt like I was pretty much ready. Great game. But I felt like that the journey for the Braves, we didn't realize it then, Because I think a lot of us Braves fans were pulling for St. Louis to win because we wanted to cut the head off the snake, so to speak. Everybody knew the Dodgers were the best team in the National League, top to bottom. But when you got that victory by the Dodgers, a little bit of foreshadowing there is Chris Taylor was the hero in that game. Remember, he had the walk-off shot that won the game. That sent the Dodgers out to San Francisco for the NLDS. And had the Cardinals won it, I think the Giants mopped the floor with the Cardinals. Absolutely no disrespect to the Cardinals, but they were not the team that the Giants were. So the Dodgers went out there, and after I did the game and I had time to think about it, I thought to myself, this isn't necessarily terrible news. I was still wanting the Giants to beat the Dodgers because the Dodgers were the better roster. But all I could think of is, man, if these two teams push each other and weaken their bullpens, weaken their starting pitching, push themselves to the limit, which they ended up doing, Atlanta could be the beneficiary of this because you're going to face a tired squad. So Atlanta goes on and plays Milwaukee, and we all remember we lose that first game to Milwaukee. Morton pitched a hell of a game, and Charlie Morton ended up being the one who gave up the home run to Tellez. We all felt like that he was left in just a little too long. Charlie Morton's MO has pretty much been, once he gets past the fifth inning, he can kind of run out of gas. And we didn't realistically have an issue with the fact that they sent Morton back out there to start the seventh. But the fact that once he let the first guy on, he should have been pulled. But that's not what they did. It's the 2-run bomb. The Braves end up losing. That was the first Jock Peterson home run, remember? And little did we know Jocktober was about to be born. Everyone was excited that he came through with the home run clutch. They just couldn't get anything off of Hader, who slammed the door shut. We did get a rally going, though, and to me that was encouraging, considering when we played them earlier in the regular season, Hader was blowing their doors off, and it didn't look like, when I saw that earlier in the season, all I could think of was, man, if we face this team in the playoffs, we can't let them get the lead because this guy just can't be hit. So then you go to the next game, and meanwhile, while this is going on, the Giants and Dodgers had started their series the same night, and the Giants beat the Dodgers. And then the following night, the Dodgers beat the Giants. So they're starting what is about to become a 5-game series. Max Fried goes out and pitches phenomenally in game number 2. They beat Woodruff. Incredible pitching on the Milwaukee side. But Woodruff gave up the runs. Remember, Austin Riley got a home run in that game. Soler with the double. Ozzie Albies. Ozzie Albies started the playoffs off really hot. And then we've got to go back to Atlanta, taking that Sunday off. And we go back to Atlanta on that Monday, and it's Anderson versus Hauser. And Ian Anderson pitches an absolute gem. An absolute gem. Goes out there. Ian Anderson went 5 innings, no earned runs. And Atlanta comes through. This is the second home run, the second Jock Peterson home run. And this is about the time that you start getting the pearl necklaces, the Jocktober talk, all that kind of stuff. 2 pinch hits, 2 pinch hit home runs. And the Braves lead it 2-1. And Braves country, all we are thinking to ourselves is, let's not let it get back to Milwaukee. We need to go ahead and end this, because if it gets back to Milwaukee, they're going to have their guy on the mound who Cy Young most likely will win the Cy Young award. And Atlanta just wanted no part of it for very good reason. So in that game 4, Atlanta goes out and they send Charlie Morton back out to the mound. And he's on short rest, but he gives it the old college try. Now, the one thing we did know is we were going to have Max Fried in game 5, and he was going to be on regular rest. So you felt good about that. But Charlie Morton went out there. He was just an absolute bulldog and pitched 3 1/3, gave up 2 runs. And that game swung back and forth like a pendulum. If you remember, Milwaukee jumped out 2-0 top of the fourth. Braves came back and tied it up. Milwaukee jumped out 4-2 top of the fifth, and that was Tellez hitting another home run. This time it was off Enoa. Braves came back, tied it up. So we had a tie ball game going to the bottom of the eighth inning, and Hader's in the game, and he throws a get-me-over slider to Freddie Freeman. Here's the clip from Braves Country YouTube. Here's the first pitch to Freddie Freeman. Hit high and deep into center field. It's going back. Zip, boom, bam, it's gone. Ram-a-lamma, ding-dong. The Braves lead it 5-4. Freddie Freeman comes through in a big way. He takes Josh Hader deep. The Atlanta Braves lead it 5-4 on the bat of Freddie Freeman. The crowd is going bananas. The dugout going wild. High fives. Way to make your presence known finally, Mr. Freeman. The Braves end up holding on. Remember, we went into that ninth inning, Will Smith on the hill, and nobody had the confidence in Will Smith. Not if you've been watching this team all year long. So he comes in to slam the door, and here's the quick clip on that. The crowd is on their feet. Christian Yelich, a single and a run. Very dangerous hitter. Cross everything. So we're trying to get one more strike out of Will Smith. So many heroes here. Wow! Called third strike. He got caught watching the paint dry, and that's it. The Atlanta Braves will head to the National League Championship Series. They knock out the Milwaukee Brewers in fine fashion, 5-4. Unbelievable game. The team is rushing the mound, and why not? A team that everyone had forgotten about. Everyone had left for dead. All we heard back in June and July was the Phillies, the Mets. The Atlanta Braves upset the Brewers in this series. Crack that champagne open, Braves country. So Atlanta goes on and wins that series. And later on that evening, the Giants were trying to knock out the Dodgers. They were up 2-1 at the time, if you remember that. And the Dodgers tied it up. It was in Los Angeles. They tied it up. And there was a day off, and then they go to San Francisco for a Game 5. And I think a lot of Braves fans were pulling for the Giants to win, thinking we had a much better chance than beating the Dodgers. But the Dodgers pull it out. But when they do it, this is where it begins. This is where the unraveling of the Los Angeles Dodgers begins, because Roberts puts Scherzer into close that night. Scherzer never rebounds from this. So he puts Scherzer into close. Urias was his middle guy. Urias went 4 innings on short rest because they started with a traditional bullpen game, and Nabel was their starter, and then they went to Gratterall. Then they got 4 innings out of Urias. Scherzer saved the game after Kenley Jansen came in the inning before to keep the game where it was at. So it came at a price because they go on to win it. A lot of people felt like they should have sent Jansen back out for that next inning, and then if there was a sign of trouble, maybe bring Scherzer or somebody in. Remember, that Dodgers bullpen was deep, but look, Roberts wanted to beat the Giants. And you got to understand that part from his perspective, because he's coming from the Dodger culture of, above all else, you got to beat the Giants. And I think he looked at them as the real threat. And if he could knock out the Giants, look, for good reason, I think a lot of people figured the Dodgers were going to find a way to beat the Braves. Deeper roster. Yeah, they had the injury to Muncy, but you look at the injuries to the Atlanta Braves, it was absurd at that point. What were they even doing in the NLCS? You know, everybody talks about, especially when you get the national media perspective, everybody keeps referring to the Acuna injury. but nobody wants to bring up the Ozuna absence because of the circumstances. But taking Ozuna out of that lineup was huge. Now, it ended up being a godsend because I don't think any of those moves are made, maybe one or two, but not to the level that Anthopoulos did at the trading deadline if they still have Ozuna. So when it's all said and done, the Dodgers kind of mortgage their future to be able to knock out the Giants. And look, if you understand that rivalry, you kind of understand where that's coming from. But they go on to face the Braves in the NLCS. And the Braves in Game 1, I mean, that series could have turned on a dime in a couple of different situations. But in Game 1, with the Braves and Dodgers tied at 2 apiece, they'd been tied all game. Goes to the bottom of the 9th. They had tied it. The Braves got a run in the first. Dodgers tied it, and then the Braves and Dodgers each scored a run in the 4th. That game was tied from the 5th inning on at 2-2. And it goes to the bottom of the 9th, and then we get another heart-stopping ending to the Braves game against the Dodgers in Game 1. Here's the clip. Austin Riley, 0 for 2 lifetime. And here's the first pitch, and it is a slider. And Ozzie goes, and he steals second. He steals it with ease. Timed that perfectly. Looked like it was a slider that he went on. And the Braves now have a runner on second. The winning run of Ozzie Albies. He got a pretty good jump and flew under the tag. Picked the perfect pitch to go on. In Atlanta, a single could win this game. Austin Riley stands at the plate. Peterson is on deck. Jock Peterson, by the way, is 2 for 4 lifetime versus Trina. Here's the swung on, and it is roped down the line. It's going to rattle around, and oh, baby boy, here comes Ozzie Albies. He's going to score. The Braves walk it off. Oh, my word, the first pitch, and it is absolutely scoop-a-doop down the line. How about that? How about that? The Atlanta Braves come back and score a run in the bottom of the 9th and walk it off. This team has more lives than a cat. So now we head to Game 2 of the NLCS, and you know, we're doing all this the whole time with Jorge Soler on the COVID list. That took place late in the Milwaukee series, and Jorge Soler was waiting to get cleared. So you're doing this without one of your best bats. At the time going into the playoffs, he was our leadoff hitter in most cases, and Eddie Rosario starts to become a hero. Eddie Rosario, at this point, this is what leads to Eddie Rosario with the NLCS MVP. So we get to Game 2 in Atlanta. Remember, they got down early, 2-0. Seager hit that 2-run bomb. They climb back in it, and Atlanta ties it up at 2-2. And then the Dodgers jump out to a 4-2 lead in the 7th, and Atlanta rallied in the bottom of that 7th inning. And that was the game, that was the inning, the bottom of the 8th inning, where it would come into question later on. But Wash had sent both Ozzie and Rosario on bang-bang plays at the plate where they had to slide in. Rosario, remember, got underneath that tag barely from the outfield. And then Ozzie was sent and collided with the catcher. The ball came out, and the game was tied. And then we get to the bottom of the 9th, and the Dodgers were trying to hold on to not have to use Jansen once again. So they were going to Gratterall, who throws 1,000,000 miles an hour, but the Braves had started to get to him, and they got a rally on, and Swanson is in scoring position. Rosario's at the plate. Kenley Jansen comes in to try to put out the fire. And here's the call. 3 very good outfielders ready to deploy their arms. A very good base runner in Dansby Swanson, one of the best closers to ever do it in the postseason on the hill, and Eddie Rosario, who is 3 for 4, he stands at the plate. And you can't pitch around him because Freddie Freeman, though he's been a little cold, stands on deck. So let's do it. Here's the first pitch from Jansen. He does that little shimmy on the mound, winds up, and the first pitch is swung on, and it is rifle neck up the middle. It's going to score. It's going to, Dansby Swanson's going to come around. It came off the glove. The Braves win. The Braves win. The Braves win. 5-4 in heart-stopping fashion again. Can this cardiac kid bunch do it night after night after night after night? Rosario was sitting dead red. It was a ball that was left over the heart of the plate. He hit it into the shift, but the ball ricocheted off the glove of Trey Turner. So that ends up giving Atlanta a 2-0 lead. They're heading to Los Angeles, and what you're thinking of going into that first game against the Dodgers in LA is, if we can just win one of these two, we would have a 3-1 lead, putting a lot of pressure on the Dodgers and taking a lot off the Braves mainly. Because the Braves, of course, have heard it all, how they were up 3-1 last year. And I said it back then, totally different situation. You're talking about a team that was playing in a bubble, not the same roster by any stretch of the imagination anyways. But remember something about the Braves last year in 2020. Not only were you playing in a bubble, so there was no home field, there was no going back and forth and fighting those elements. There was also the fact that Atlanta didn't have a pitching staff. There was no Charlie Morton on that team. Soroka was out. It was Fried, it was Anderson, and then it was a bunch of bubblegum. They were trying to just limp their way in. And I still feel like if Atlanta finds a way to knock out the Dodgers in those playoffs in 2020, they probably win the World Series in 2020 as well, because they would have matched up well against Tampa Bay, who was trying to do the same thing Atlanta was doing. They just were in the American League, were able to get through Houston, who got into a slump. Remember, Houston got down 3-0 to Tampa and almost came back and won that thing. But bubble baseball was so much different. So you fast forward back to this year, Atlanta's going into Dodger Stadium, and all eyes are on Atlanta on if they can find a way to make this a 3-0 lead. And they got up in this game on the Dodgers, 5-2. It's the bottom of the 8th, and Luke Jackson gives up that memorable home run, and all the doom and gloomers came out of the woodworks. They all said this is going to be a gut punch. The Braves are not going to be able to fight this off. It's going to be devastating to have been that close to be up 3-0, and the Dodgers are about to roll. And that was the narrative that was being sold to us. Now, you get past that, and you're a Braves fan, and you're thinking to yourself, all right, well, the worst-case scenario is we're going to go back to Atlanta down 3-2, but they're going to have to beat us on our home field, and it's a different story this year. We were set up well with the starting rotation, but we go to game number 4, up 2-0. In a sense, you're playing with house money. Meanwhile, back at the ranch in the American League Championship Series, the Red Sox had a 2-1 lead on that same game, that same day, in Boston. They were up 2-1, and everyone thought that series had taken a turn for the worse. They didn't know if the Astros could get out of Boston. And Houston had gotten off the mat and blown out the Red Sox in game number 4. They scored 9-2. They outscored the Red Sox. They would go on and beat the Red Sox again in Game 5 and then knock them out in Game 6. But heading into that day, everybody thought that the Red Sox had really caught fire and that the Astros were in trouble. To that point, a lot of people had basically not given the Astros enough credit, how good they were, and how the Red Sox though have a great offense, their pitching was lacking. So the next day, Atlanta throws a bullpen game out there, and we're going up against Urias. And this goes back to what I was saying a second ago about the Giants series. Urias comes out to pitch game number 4, and he was a shell of his former self. This is a guy that led the National League in wins. And pre-Scherzer trade was the best pitcher on their staff. He came out and gave up 5 earned runs in 5 innings. A lot of folks thought that it was insane that he was left in as long as he was left in. The Braves scored 2 in the second, 2 in the third, and they left him out there for the 5th. And he gave up the 5 runs. Then the Dodgers crawl back into it, make it 5-2, and everyone's a little worried. And for the rest of the game, you're on pins and needles. And then the top of the 9th inning, the Braves put 4 up on the board, put the game out of reach, and win game 4 in that series. Go up 3-1, and now they're going to have to play one more game in Los Angeles. They may lose it and have to go back to Atlanta, or they may win it and end the series. And this is this tells you what kind of fight the Dodgers have, that they are a team that is proud, because I'll tell you what, teams of lesser character would have rolled over and said, you know what, we're not going to win 3 in a row. We're not going to win 2 in Atlanta. Just go ahead and have it. It's over. Fried goes out, and you're thinking, all right, if we don't get this, we're still going to have Anderson and Charlie Morton in Atlanta to be able to win this series. The Dodgers win. They blow us out. They score 11 runs altogether. But Max Fried goes out and he lays his first egg of the playoffs. He goes 4 2/3, 5 earned runs, 8 hits, 2 home runs, unlike Max. The series goes back to Atlanta on that Saturday night. Braves just needing 1 win. If we don't get the win, we know we got Charlie Morton. Anderson goes out and throws 4 innings, only gives up 1 run to the Dodgers. You hate the fact that he didn't have the length, but this really begins what is looked upon as the 3-headed monster of the Atlanta pen. Minter comes in, fires 2 shutout innings. That was huge in that game. Absolutely enormous. Jackson comes back. He gives up an earned run in the 7th inning, but the Braves still have a 4-2 lead. And this was after Eddie Rosario had taken the lead for Atlanta. Remember, this was the big play. Adrianza had come off the bench to hit a double. There were runners on second and third. And remember, Walker Buehler was pitching on short rest, and they had left him in to face Eddie Rosario. And here's the call with Rosario at the plate. A single scores at least 1, probably 2, with Adrianza's speed. Braves fans are on their feet hoping for some kind of a bleeder or a seeing eye single, trying to find any way to get a runner home. Here's the 1-2 pitch. Buehler's got to be coming to the end of his string. For him to piece together this many pitches on 3 days rest, he's really done an incredible job. Braves won, Dodgers won, bottom of the 4th. Justin Buehler looks like he is ready. I don't think Buehler in any way, shape, or form is going to face Freddie Freeman. Here's the 1-2 pitch, and it is swung on and hit high and deep down the right field line. Is it fair? It is gone, baby! Ram-a-lam-a ding-dong, zit, boom, bam, a 3-run shot by Eddie Rosario. Eddie Rosario makes it 4-1 Atlanta. And so Atlanta would hold on to beat the Dodgers, win the game 4-2, and head to the World Series for the first time since 1999. And here's that call. We're 1 out away, Braves country, from a trip to the World Series. Whatever superstition you got, do it. The entire city of Atlanta, the entire South is standing on their feet, trying to will the Braves into the World Series. Here's the 1-0 pitch. And swung on and ripped over to Dansby Swanson. Dansby's got it. He fires over to first. Baby, sound the trumpets. Do the chop through the streets. Your Atlanta Braves are headed to the 2021 World Series. Oh, baby. And with that, we knew we were heading to Houston. Houston had already won their series, and we felt pretty good about it. We had Charlie Morton. We had Fried going on game 2. Ian Anderson coming home. We knew we were going to have a bullpen game, but all in all, I felt really good about Atlanta's chances. They'd beaten all the odds of being able to get through the season with all the injuries. Now it was all about who was playing the best, and I felt like Atlanta's pitching was better than Houston's pitching across the board. Now, Houston has a pretty good bullpen, but their starting pitching, to me, was the glaring weakness. We get that first game in the World Series, and it just becomes devastating and a gut punch that Charlie Morton ends up only pitching 2 1/3 inning. In the second inning, a comebacker comes off of his leg. He goes out unbelievably, pitches 16 more pitches on that broken leg off of adrenaline or whatever have you. But now Minter's got to come in and give us almost 3 innings. It paid off. Luke Jackson stepped up. I know a lot of people have been on Jackson's case, but look, that was a big deal for Luke Jackson to come out there and help spell this win, because he went out there and gave you 5 outs with no earned runs. Minter gave up only 1 run between 2 and a third inning. And remember, Atlanta had already jumped out to a big lead. They were up 5-0 when Morton went down. And then, of course, Matzik came in, and he gave us 4 outs. Now, he gave up a run as well, but that built the bridge to get us to the 9th inning. Smith closes out. The Braves win 6-2. And how they kept it together after learning of Morton's injury, I don't know, but it was huge for them to not just pack it in and fight that off. Now, I do believe the next night we come out and we lose 7-2, and there was a very much of a feeling that everything was real now. Morton was definitely going to be gone. He was done for the season, broken leg, and to make it worse, you almost felt like the Braves sleptwalked through that game, but to make it worse, Max Fried was just terrible. He was absolutely terrible, and he pitched 5 innings, 6 earned runs. They could have easily have pulled him after 2 innings. He'd given up 5 runs. At the time, I felt like they should have, because if you would have taken him out at that point, there was 43 pitches thrown. He could have went on short rest on Sunday with just 43 pitches thrown. He would have been fine. And Atlanta probably wins the World Series at home, because you just knew Max Fried was not going to lay another egg out there again. But they went the conventional route, and they left him out there to eat innings. Then they brought in Dylan Lee and Chavez and Smiley to just eat innings along with Wright. And little did we know that Wright outing, just 1 inning pitch at the tail end of the game, and the 8th inning, we struck out the side. He was phenomenal. Now, you didn't know this was more of things to come from Wright, but that was a big spot in the series. So then we go to game 3, and Ian Anderson was just absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. He was dealing. We all felt like he should have been left in the game longer than he was. He went 5 innings, 76 pitches was the big thing, no hits, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. And we all felt like, and honestly, I think if they had to do it over again, they might have just got caught up in the momentum. They would have done it differently. They would have left Anderson in. Now, yes, it all worked out, but the less that they can see of your bullpen, the better. Minter, Jackson, Matzik, and Smith all came in and gave you an inning, and they were all shutdown innings. What made that huge was, A, the fact that you knew you were going to have 2 back-to-back bullpen games, and B, Anderson was just pitching really well. So we were all frustrated that he was taken out early. We felt like he should have been left to go as far as he could, as long as he could. But it worked out. They win the game. And let's not forget the huge at-bat with just a 1-0 lead to get some insurance by a man who had been scuffling at the plate, Travis d'Arnaud. Here's the call. And here comes d'Arnaud. Remember, he hit a solo shot in game 2. He's 1 for 3 tonight with a double. He might be getting his swing back at the right time for Atlanta. Here's the first pitch. It swung on and hit high, driven deep. Goodbye, baby. That's gone. Ram-a-lamma, ding-dong, zip, boom, bam. That ball was crushed like an ant. Jackpot. Your Atlanta Braves lead it 2-0. A solo shot over the wall, over the left center field wall, and that was a no-doubter. That's one way to hit them where they ain't. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. The Atlanta Braves lead game 3 2-0. Such a big run there because it now gives you the opportunity to even if Will Smith had gone out there and made a mistake, he now has breathing room. So Atlanta goes on to win that game, and they take the series lead at that point. It's now 2-1, and now Saturday's game is going to be a bullpen game. And you know you're going to be in a dogfight because you're going bullpen game versus bullpen game. Remember, they started with Greinke, and they started off well. Greinke went out there, threw 4 innings. I think it's understated how well Greinke played it in this postseason, and really should have thought about more why they didn't. If you're an Astros fan sitting back, you got to think to yourself, why wasn't he given an opportunity to pitch more? Greinke, 4 innings, 3 strikeouts, no earned runs. And this is the Dylan Lee game. This is the game where Dylan Lee comes in, first time starting in the postseason, first time starting in the major leagues. Though he's an older rookie, I believe he's 26, might be 27, but he comes in and he's just a shell. You can tell the moment was too big for him, and this was the spot. And when the Braves go on to win this series and they do the celebrations, and a lot of things are going to be talked about, and everyone's always going to point to what Soler did at the plate, Dansby Swanson, Rosario, Freddie Freeman, Max Fried with the big start in Game 6. And, of course, those are going to jump out at you. They're going to jump out at you because they were the clinchers, the big home run by Freddie against Milwaukee. But this is the spot. This is where the series turned on a dime. This is where the Atlanta Braves won the World Series. Now, granted, they're only up 2-1, but they know they're going to have another bullpen game the next day. We're going to end up getting clobbered in that game. We'll get to that game in a second. But Kyle Wright comes out after 1 run is given up, and Kyle Wright, first of all, stops the bleeding in that inning. That could have been a much bigger inning. And then he goes on to throw 4 2/3 and only gives up 1 run. Out of the blue, out of nowhere. No one expected this from Kyle Wright. We all know how Kyle Wright has struggled. Anyone who's followed the Braves, he's been terrible. But he came out in a big way, in a big moment. And maybe it was one of those situations where he just didn't have enough time to think. You just had to react. So I've always felt like Kyle Wright's had the stuff, but the stuff in between his ears is what's gotten him in trouble. He overthinks it. Just like Luke Jackson, I don't think they realize how good their stuff is. Man, you've got a fastball of kings. Fire that baby and make them react to it. Throw that fastball, and you can mix in your off speed. You're going to have to. You can't throw the same pitch over and over. Everybody knows that. But throw that fastball, and it's like Maddox, who never had the fastball that Kyle Wright always said. Everything works off of that fastball. You set the tone with the fastball, and they know that ball's hitting the zone. Then all your off-speed stuff can do damage as well, but you've got to be able to place that fastball and be willing to go to it. And that's what we saw from Kyle Wright. He was throwing bullets. They got 1 run on him, but he was throwing bullets, and that was huge because the Braves are now down 2-0. We head to the bottom of the 6th. And in the bottom of the 6th, we score a run. Austin Riley drove in Rosario to make it a 2-1 game. And then one of the biggest at-bats that has ever been in the history of the Atlanta Braves. Down 2-1 in the bottom of the 7th inning. Dansby Swanson steps to the plate, and after him, Soler. So here's the call. As the Braves trail by 1, it's getting late early. We all know this is essentially where the Braves need to make their damage. They're about to hit the top of the lineup, the heart of the lineup. If it's not the 7th, it's got to be the 8th. So here are the at-bats from Swanson and Soler. Braves trail by just 1 run, hoping to tie this game up. Jorge Soler stands on deck. Swanson with the 0-2 pitch. And it is swung on and hit high and deep into right field. Going. It is gone, baby! Ramalama, ding dong, zip, boom, bam! The Atlanta Braves have just tied it up. Dansby Swanson roasts one into the 3rd or 4th row of right field. And just when you think all hope is lost, Lieutenant Dan comes rolling through. How about that? We got a new ball game in Atlanta, Georgia. The Atlanta Braves have tied it up, and Jorge Soler is coming to the plate. They're dancing in the dugout. They're drinking in the streets of Atlanta, doing the chop. Here we go. 2-2 is your score. The Braves have new life, and you can see it in the dugout. He went with a fastball on the outside part of the plate. We all know who have followed Dansby Swanson in his career. He will take the approach of going outside if you pitch him outside, and he just went with the ball, stuck his foot in the ground, and plowed it over the right field wall. 2-2 is your score. So now, with 1 out in a tie game, here's Jorge Soler, and it's a fastball inside, and it's 1-0. Oh, how Atlanta would love to get a lead here. Leading the series 2-1, a win here would go a long ways to getting the Braves franchise their 4th World Series title. Here's the 1-0 pitch, and it's a slider off the plate. Good pitch by Javier, and it's 1-1. Dansby Swanson coming through, the chop going in Atlanta. Jorge Soler digs in on deck. Eddie Rosario. Here's the 1-1 pitch, and it's a slider below the knees off the plate, and it's 2-1. What a big at bat by Lieutenant Dan. Here comes the 2-1 pitch to Jorge Soler, and it is swung on and roasted into left field over the bullpen wall. It's 3-2. Your Atlanta Braves. Ramalama, ding dong, zip, boom, bam. That ball was crushed like an ant. Oh, my word. That was an absolute jackpot, baby. 3-2, Atlanta leads the game, and the place is going bananas. I hope y'all are dancing in your living room or wherever you're at. Atlanta, back-to-back solo jacks. We've got a 1-run lead and 1 out in the bottom of the 7th. Look out. So Atlanta goes on to win that game, and 3-2 ends up being the final score. Will Smith once again slamming the door. It won't be talked about enough. Will Smith, 11 innings pitched in this postseason, 0 earned runs. With all the struggles that man has had, not just this season. Remember, a lot of people forget Will Smith was basically a middle-of-the-bullpen guy by the end of the regular season into the postseason of last year. He was getting hit, and I firmly believe somebody got into Will Smith's ear at some point in the second half of the season, whether it was one of his teammates or a coach or somebody. You know, Will Smith references how after the games they'll drink a beer and talk about this and that and what went wrong and what didn't go wrong. Somebody got through to him and said, believe in your fastball. That's what makes Will Smith a good closer. When he's throwing 93, and that's about where he sits, That's about his limit, around 93. Sometimes he can go a tick higher, normally a tick lower. But when he's putting bullets on the outer part of the plate, and then once he gets ahead of you, you have to be ready for that devastating slider. But prior to whenever he made that turn, I felt like it happened pretty late in the season, to be honest with you. We started broadcasting these games in late September, and the first game we did, he blew a save because he was nibbling. It was really closer to the very end of the season where all of a sudden you started seeing a difference in Will Smith. Started seeing some, and I really think he just had to get a few saves under his belt and start believing in himself again, start throwing that fastball, and he became the Will Smith that now has a Will Smith now has a World Series ring on that finger that he shot the bird to everybody on. I don't know if you saw that picture, but I thought it was pretty funny. That goes out to all of us who didn't believe in him. I remember we did a show right before the playoffs started, and we talked about the closing situation, and I said at the time that you're so deep in the season now, you just have to ride with them, believe in them, give them as much support as possible, and just hope for the best. Because there was no way you could just go all of a sudden put someone else in a different closer role. I'd been banging the drum for a few months in the middle of the season that Matzik, which he deserved it, Matzik was the best closer, was the best pitcher in that bullpen back half of the season on. But they had set it up the way they set it up, and I don't think they wanted to mess with any kind of mojo. And then by the time you get to the playoffs, you just got to dance with the girl who brought you and hope for the best. And he pitched out of his mind. They still have one more year with Smith, and I don't know if he'll be there long term. He might be a guy that once they finish out the deal with Will Smith, he'll go on elsewhere, or he might give the Braves a discounted rate. But Will Smith pitched out of his mind. So we win that game, and we go to game number 5, and it's another bullpen game, and they tried to do the same thing where they rolled out Tucker Davidson. And honestly, Tucker Davidson started the game off and pitched pretty well. He had a good first inning. He started getting banged up in the second. We'd gotten the grand slam from Duvall, and everybody felt like, what are they doing sending Davidson back out? And he pitched the second inning, gave up 2 runs, and you hated that. But then he came up and they let him hit. That was a terrible decision. And look, the Braves ended up being okay. We ended up winning the World Series anyways, but that was a terrible decision to send Davidson back out there, and he pitched the 3rd inning and gave up 2 more runs. When you do a bullpen game like that, your opener should never see an at-bat unless you have a situation with like Greinke, who first of all is a good hitter, and second of all, he's a starter by trade during the season. So the Braves end up getting just demolished, but I thought what one of the key was, in case that series went deeper than what it ended up going, we ended up knocking them out in the 6th, but if that series would have went 7, what I thought was a key to that game, you got 1 2/3 innings from Chavez. I hated to see Minter come in a game that we had no chance of winning, but Martin came in, gave you a clean inning, actually gave you 4 outs, and then Smiley, when he came in, the game was essentially over, but he ate 3 innings. He ate the back end of 3 innings for you. When he comes in, it's 7-5, and it did feel like they were giving up. Let's be honest. It felt like that they were giving up. He comes in, but they're trying to get some length. When he gives up the run to make it 8-5, now it really feels over, and at that point, while I was doing the broadcast, I mentioned, you know what, just leave him in. Let him eat the rest of these innings. It's over. Because conversely, what you have to look at what was going on the Houston side. Houston brought in Graveman, who arguably, stuff-wise, is the best reliever on either two staffs. He's just got nasty stuff. I'd say I'd put him head-to-head with Matzik. Graveman came in for 2 innings, and you just knew you had no shot of coming back and winning that game. So Smiley came in, ate the innings that needed to be eaten, because if you were going to win the World Series, you were probably going to need that bullpen in a big way in Game 6 or Game 7. And it ended up not being the case. The Braves slammed the door with the bullpen in Game 6, but it wasn't necessarily needed. Fried probably could have went a little longer. You probably could have put just about anyone out there at that point to eat those innings. But to be able to rest those guys and to know you didn't have to have Jackson, Matzik, or Smith come into that game. You're down in the game. The game's over, but you're up in the series 3-1. That series was essentially won in game number 4. And so incredible. The Kyle Wright coming on and pitching the way he did, and then the big home runs by Soler and Swanson. It was just enormous. It was absolutely enormous. And we look at it now in hindsight and realize how big it was, but I don't know if we realized it at the time. It was enormous what Kyle Wright brought to the table. And so we have a series going back to Houston. We're up 3-2, and we know that all we need is one win, and it's ours. Max Fried, Ian Anderson the next 2 days. I felt good about it. Anxious as all get out because you had to sit around for 48 hours waiting for the next game to be played. And all the scenarios pop in your head on what could happen. What if Fried goes out there and lays an egg again, and then it's all on the line in Game 7, and you just never know. But I felt very confident in Ian Anderson, and I really did feel like Max Fried was too good of a pitcher to get hammered 3 games in a row. Max Fried goes out and spins an absolute gem. And you can't overlook the play that happened in the first inning where they stepped on Fried's leg, on his foot. And that by no means was the base runner's fault. Brantley was just running down the line, and he stepped on Fried's foot, and Fried's foot just happened to be right in front of the bag. But you've got Brantley coming down the line. He steps on his foot. They don't review it because I still don't know why the Braves didn't review that. I'm going to guess they didn't have access, or just didn't play through the entire review. It's one or the other. I can't imagine they saw the entire review and said, let's not review it, because he was definitely out. He stepped on his foot, goes over the bag. Fried's left foot then slides and kicks and hits the bag. Still has the ball in his glove. That's an out. But instead, Fried goes out there, makes sure his leg is okay. He throws a couple of practice pitches. Then he goes out and throws a shutdown inning. Runners on first and second, nobody out. He strikes out Correa. I mean, he's got Correa, Alvarez, and Gurriel coming up back to back to back. And this could have unraveled. He could have just packed it up, blamed it on the injury, or just decided to come out of the game. How many kids nowadays are more worried about their next big contract? Got a lot of respect for Max Fried sticking with it, especially when you see some of the athletes today that will quit for if they're given any reason to quit, they'll just quit. Max Fried stuck it out, and he pitched phenomenally. Max Fried goes out and gives you 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, scattered 4 hits. Now, granted, 2 of those hits was in that first inning, because the first one to Altuve, remember, that was a infield single. And then the Brantley one that's called a hit isn't really a hit. That's 2 of the 4 hits. Outside of that, he was absolutely shut down for the rest of the game. And then the 2 shots that really put the game out of reach, that put the game in the bag for the Braves. First, the one by Soler, and then later on by Dansby Swanson, who you can't say enough how good of a job that Dansby Swanson did throughout the entire postseason. But 2 of the more dramatic home runs, because the 3-0 lead is nice, but when you put that stamp and make it 5-0, you felt like at that point, we're going to win this thing. And then, of course, Freddie Freeman gets into the act as well. So I'm going to play those clips for you real quick. We'll start it off with the Jorge Soler enormous home run. And, of course, that took place in the top of the 3rd. Dansby's was in the 5th. And then, of course, Freddie Freeman got into the act as well, and then really put the exclamation point on it, hitting his solo shot in the 7th. So here are those calls real quick. Soler not missing those fastballs. You got to figure Garcia's going to try to go to that slider again at some point, take his chances. That was right down Main Street. He just out in front of that. Soler would love to have that one back. Here's your 3-2 pitch to Soler from Garcia. Game number 6. Braves lead the series 3-2. Runners on first and second, 2 away. They'll be on the move. Here's the windup. Crowd's on its feet, and the pitch swung on and hit high and deep and driven far. Good God, baby, that's gone. Jorge Soler, Ramalama, ding dong, zip, boom, bam. He just put that baby into orbit. Jackpot, the Braves lead at 3-0. Jorge Soler knocked the ball out of the stadium. If you're anywhere in the Houston area, duck, because that ball might be crashing through your window at any moment. Atlanta leads it 3-0. Huge at bat. And Soler, the moment he hit it, turned around, pounded his chest, looked at the dugout, and Superman, he's got an Atlanta Braves jersey in the designated hitter role. If you ever wondered, Superman wears number 12 in Atlanta. That'll bring up Dansby Swanson. He's 0 for 1, scuffling in the series. Outside the dramatic home run that he hit to tie the game the other night, Dansby Swanson hasn't done much in the series. He normally gets on these little hot streaks, and you keep waiting for it to happen. Great interview the other night, if you missed it, by Dansby. Here's the 1-0 pitch, and it's a fastball inside, and it's 2-0. Maldonado steps up and takes his mask off, wants to try to calm down Javier. Probably doesn't want to burn a mound visit. Dansby Swanson's from the Atlanta area, went to college in Nashville, Tennessee. Of course, he was a part of the deal that brought back from Arizona, but talked about how much that he is a fan of all the teams in Atlanta. Here's the 2-0 pitch to Swanson, swung on and missed, slider right down the heart of the plate, just mistimed it, and it's 2-1. Talking about how he's a Falcons fan and an Atlanta Hawks fan. You love to see that from a homegrown kid. So here's the 2-2 pitch to Dansby. Ozzie sitting out there on second base, trying to get anyone to bring him home. A single would definitely score Ozzie with his speed. Here's the 2-2 pitch, and it's swung on and fouled back. They went to that slider again 3 times in a row, and Dansby almost squared that one up. You got to figure at some point the express is coming. About a 15-mile-an-hour difference between Javier's fastball and his slider. So you almost have to sit on the fastball and react to the slider. But even then, that's pretty difficult to time that up. You're talking about 15 miles an hour. Big difference. Here's the 2-2 pitch to Dansby Swanson from Javier. Javier's 33rd pitch of the night. And the delivery swung on and hit high. He hammered it deep into left field. Jackpot, baby! Rama-lama, ding-dong, zip, boom, bam! The Atlanta Braves lead it 5-0. They went to the well one too many times, and Dansby Swanson, Lieutenant Dan, comes through for your Atlanta Braves. Freddie Freeman had a double in the 5th inning, bringing his average to 286 for the World Series, 1 home run and 4 RBIs. I think right now the MVP is probably Soler. You would have won yourself a good piece of cheese if you would have taken Soler as the MVP beginning of the playoffs, or the beginning of the World Series. He was sitting in most books around 18 to 20 to 1 odds. Here's the 1-1 pitch to Freddie, swung on and hammered high, driven deep. That baby's gone. Freddie Freeman, get yourself a home run, son. It's 7-0 Atlanta. The Atlanta Braves put another run on the board. Freddie Freeman sitting there in the catbird seat and rocked it over the wall. 7-0 is your score. He took that thing absolutely yard. So as the journey begins to end and we complete these playoffs, Will Smith gets the last out for the Braves, gets a ground ball over to Dansby, and here's the call as Dansby Swanson throws it over to first to Freddie Freeman. We're down to 1 strike here. It's 0-2. Gurriel, the last hope for the Houston Astros. And here's the 0-2 pitch. Here's the delivery. Swung on, bounced over to Dansby. Dansby fires it over to first. And here comes the dog pile. Fire the cannons in the battery. Do the chop, baby. All throughout Braves country, pop that top. Your Atlanta Braves have won it all. World Series chance for the first time since 1995. Atlanta, GA, your boys are coming home with the World Series trophy. Woo! How about it, Braves country? How about it? I'm going to take a quick break. to pour me a drink, by God. And then I'll meet y'all here. Anyone who wants to hang out and celebrate, we're going to keep this feed going. And let it get it, baby! It's about damn time! So that'll put a cap on it. The Braves win the 2021 World Series. I hope y'all had as much fun as I did. We'll be bringing you Braves Country today, about once a week until we get past the winter meetings, have more to talk about. Obviously, we'll keep you up to date on what's going on with the labor agreements and free agency. That'll be the big thing we'll be focusing on. But enjoy this, Braves fans, because we don't know if we'll get another one in our lifetimes. It took 26 years. And you just never know. You know, when they won it in 95, in my head, I was a young man thinking, this Braves team's about to go on a run. We got the big three. We had Chipper Jones. We had Andrew Jones. We had a loaded team. So there's a lot of similarities to that and what we have now. But you just never know how it's going to end up. I think we've got a general manager that sees the big picture. And the thing that always drove us nuts when we were Braves fans in those prior years was one basic thing, is that though we had the pitching to go out and win all those games and win all those divisions, we had the starting pitching. They never put a bullpen behind those guys. And that was the thing that I don't know why, but Sherholtz never made it a priority. It's a different day nowadays. So that's one of the reasons why it's changed so dramatically, where your bullpen is the reason why you win or lose. But even back then, you knew you had to have a bullpen. And it's why the Yankees won so many World Series. They had Mariano Rivera, and they would build that bridge to get to Rivera. And it was something that, quite honestly, back then, the Braves front office never addressed. We would usually have a pretty good closer, but that would be about it. This team, I think, will continue to focus on a full bullpen. And with the offense that they're going to have, with these young guys, this good starting pitching, they're going to be a threat every single year. They're not going to win the World Series every year. Everybody knows that. They're not going to go to the World Series every year. It's impossible. Look how good the Astros are. They've been by far and away the best team in baseball since 2017. They've won one World Series. They've been to it 3 times. But if you're in the mix and you're fighting for it, A, you're going to be a happy fan, and B, you just never know when you might kick that door through again. But enjoy it now. Savor it. We watch these young kids grow up in the system. We watch them get to their potential. They brought in pieces at the trade deadline. This was a fun team. Every team every year is going to be a little different, but this team will always remember fondly. And honestly, I think this team is going to have more of a heroic, almost Paul Bunyan-like story to future generations who didn't get a chance to watch this team. If you compare this team to the 95 team, to me, this team was a little cut above because of all that they had to go through. The injuries. The perseverance was unreal. But we'll continue to do these shows, and we'll get you all the way to next season. And when the season comes, planning on doing at least 2 games a week. Realistically looking at probably a Friday night broadcast, and we'll pick another one. But that'll put a cap on the 2021 World Series Championship, the year of the Braves. And we'll see you in the very near future with Braves Country. I'm Mac Magee. Thanks for listening, and please like and subscribe.
You're in Braves country.